Welcome back. So if you have a child, you must provide support by law. Not paying child support can lead to serious consequences, like trouble getting credit. The other parent can also press criminal charges, and you might face legal action for unpaid support. The government is introducing new rules, if you like, to make sure people can't run away from their responsibilities. At the same time, being separated from your child is certainly a painful experience. However, this should not stop you, some might say, from being involved in their lives. Let's unpack this. For one, we've got an organization called Cool Dads. They're promoting positive fatherhood in the country. And from that organization, we've got the CEO, Bongani Lavulo. Also joining us is Phiwokuhle Mathenjwa, the director of Mathenjwa Attorneys, Family Law and Criminal Practitioner. To both our guests, thank you for your time. Welcome to the SABC News Channel. It's a big, chunky discussion, though, so let me say up front, we're unlikely to get through all the points that are, I think, important. But perhaps, Bongani, we can just start by getting the thinking behind the Cool Dads Foundation. I mean, we don't often speak about manhood, fatherhood and masculinity in this country. And some people might say, because our attention is just so divided, but this is an important issue.
No, thank you very much. The foundation really is for us to mobilize men, to play an active role in their children's lives by being present both physically and emotionally, not just a question of, supplying resources, as it's the perception that a father's role or a man's role in society is just to be a provider, but really encouraging and also ensuring that we empower men so that they're able to, make the best out of fatherhood, out of parenthood, and they best respond to their children's needs, as empowered men. So we've been running different programs that seek to teach us how to spend time with our kids, what to do when we are with our kids. But most importantly, we also assist men who want to have access to their children, who might be denied access to their children for one reason or the other. So in a nutshell, that's what we focus on as the Cool Dads Foundation.
Fair enough. And Phiwokuhle, I suppose that's where you come in as a legal mind, so to speak, this distinction between helping people with maintenance issues and also drawing a distinction between access to children. In layman's terms, I wonder if you can just break this down for us as we continue laying the foundation of our discussion.
Good morning, Ayanda, and to the viewers. It is a mistake that most people believe that in order for you to have access to the child, then the other parent must be paying maintenance, which in actual fact is always the father. However, that is not the case, and same is emphasized and very clear in the fact that we've got a maintenance court that specifically deals with maintenance issues. And then we've got the children's court, which is the court that has got the very same powers as the High Court in respect of contact and care, which we would call access. But in legal terms, we call it contact and care. Now, the other parent will have what we call primary residence. Now, primary residence is whereby the other parent literally stays with the child. And the other parent will have what we call contact and care, which means they've got to visit the child. Now, this perspective and belief that you cannot see your child if you're not maintaining the child is not the correct way.
And why is that the case? I mean, it's a bit counterintuitive. I mean, if you can, imagine a scenario where, two people were together, they have a child, they end up separating, the one continues paying for the other's well-being, but now you're explaining to us that doesn't necessarily mean they have access to the child. What's the thinking of the law in creating a provision like that?
It is basically that people always, especially I'll make an example and say most of the case mothers are always left with the burden of financially supporting the children and the father not being there. And then they end up at times punishing the father who wants to be present by saying because you cannot maintain. Now, the reason why we've got these two separate courts dealing with these issues, the intention is for us to be clear as people and the community that the other right and responsibility not dependent on the other right and responsibility.
All right. Bongani, I'm sure these kinds of discussions have featured in one way or the other in the kind of work that you are doing. Typically speaking, how have you sort of made sense of this kind of distinction? Let me ask the question in a more simpler term. Are you finding that there are men who are struggling with this? This idea of, on the one hand, there being an expectation to continue with maintenance, and on the other, not necessarily being guaranteed access to their children?
It's quite a serious battle, as Phiwo has said. When people leave relationships or end relationships, we tend to be quite punitive, punishing each other for lack of being good partners or being the partners that were expected to stay in the relationship, whether it was nice or not nice. And we then start using children as a bargaining tool of whether we propel the relationship or not. And it's done by both male and females. But in this instance, you'll find that as Bongani, I would want to punish Phiwo for not, wanting to be in a relationship with me, and I'll say I'll no longer maintain the child. Or I would be saying that if I can't see the child, then I've got no reason to be maintaining a child, because you would be saying to me, the child does not need you. The only thing that the child needs is you to pay maintenance so that we can take the child to school and look at other necessary needs. So unfortunately, even the law that has just been passed, we welcome it, the question of having to say if you are absconding, paying maintenance and you are able to pay maintenance, you ought to be registered. But unfortunately, there are many gray areas and cracks within our legal system, where they put a man at a disadvantage. And we do not look at a case-to-case and have coherence in how we administer, justice in all courts, because not all law practitioners in this, whether it's a family court, a maintenance court, or children's court, people would apply the law to the latter. So unfortunately, many of our members in the Cool Death Foundation will always find themselves challenged on whether they should continue to pay maintenance while they are not being given access to their kids. And then there are those genuinely who would not afford paying a 10,000 rands that is being demanded by Phiwo, but I could afford 4,000 rands because I'm not employed or I earn so much, and I will still be denied access to a child. And unfortunately, will always be in the back foot until we address all of these gray areas, but also be as punitive to mothers as we are punitive to fathers. Yes, you are agreeing that we are supposed to be registered into a database of people that must ruin their credit score, probably even lose employment, because there are jobs where if you are not meeting a certain credit score or you are listed in the bureau, they've got no business with you, so you're going to lose employment. And a child should be asked, would you like your father not to be employed? Would you want to see your father being, mentally not well because of he can't provide for you, but also can't take care of himself? Yeah. It's not a good area to go to. Whilst for a mother who would deny Bongani an access, even though a court would have said here is a parental plan and has certified it as a parenting plan, and Phiwo decides that I'm not going to adhere to the terms and conditions that are written there, the court will never say we're going to issue a warrant of arrest and have Phiwo arrested. Actually, we only have one case. I think last year late, a Pretoria case where a woman was denying a father access to their child, even though the court had ruled on that, and they had to be, incarcerated for I think about 12 months. That is the only case in the life of fathers having to be fighting for access to their children.
Phiwo, I see you nodding there. I mean, do you agree with the general sentiment that Bongani is raising here, that sometimes the application in the country's courts is a bit gendered?
That's correct. And maybe to add on what Bongani has said in a more simple and giving a scenario kind of example. I grew up in a society where we believed that knowledge is power. Now, most fathers have these orders against them for maintenance. But when they are suspended without pay, or rather they lose their jobs, they do not know what to do and how to go about rectifying, bring it to the maintenance court's attention. So now what one should do, they should go to court and make an application for the suspension of the order, and then provide proof that now I've been suspended and I've lost my job and I'm still looking for a job. Now, the court has got that duty because the only acceptable reason for you not to maintain your child, it would be when you cannot afford anymore. Because we do look at the fact that Pure wants 10,000 rand, but Bongani can only afford 4,000 rand. And I always say, parents need to remember and understand one thing and one thing only. It is not about them. It is not about punishing each other. It is not about getting a better lifestyle out of everything, but it is about the child. Because remember, when my partner or my daughter's father no longer affords to pay a maintenance, it shouldn't be an issue of him now being denied access. Because at times we get mothers who always say, my daughter only needs your money and they don't need you to be there. But in actual fact, the truth is what the law is trying to address, the fact that fathers need to be present. I cannot play a role of a mother and a father. And the fact that he's getting alternative weekends and or half of the school holidays should compensate for something, because now this child will grow to have a better relationship than an absent father. And in as much as I agree that there are gray areas in our legal system whereby mothers who are denying this father's access are not listed or have got a harsher way of dealing with the issue, again, I always say knowledge is power, because we always find fathers who at times cannot afford legal fees in order for them to pursue these matters. Because once an order is made by the court and the mother then denies you to have access over the child, you can, in actual fact, when the court makes that order, it comes out with the warrant of arrest. Should you be in default? In terms of Section 35, you just need to take that to the police and then they take it further. But if you want to bring a formal application for contempt, then you'll have to go to court. But in most cases, this is not done. And fathers also don't understand that they can approach legal aid to assist them in respect of these matters.
Right, yeah, absolutely. You know, as I mentioned at the start of our conversation, we're never going to be able to get around to everything, but hopefully this has been a springboard to keep that discussion going. I'm going to have to thank you both for your time. I really do appreciate your insights. Bongani Lavulo is the CEO and founder of the Cool Dads NGO, an organization that speaks to fathers, generally speaking, and I suppose manhood as an extension, and Phiwokuhle Mathenjwa, director of Mathenjwa Attorneys Family. Thanks very much indeed for both your insights and your time on the SABC News Channel. It's an important discussion without a doubt, and hopefully one that will be able to continue for the next couple of days. I think many people, let me say, are waking up to this newfound reality in the country's laws around just how important it is to ensure that both parents, no matter what their genders, play an equal role in raising their children. I know for the most part, when this new law, these new rules were brought forward, the idea was that it's targeted mainly at fathers, but it actually speaks about parents. That's what the law says. And so with that in mind, it is both parents who have to come to the party. But the issue also of weaponizing children, I think, is also one that needs a lot of attention. I mean, there are instances where, yes, the one parent is desperate for the other to be more involved, but part of what happens in that process is a weaponizing of the child by one parent against the other. And I suppose it's difficult for the law to regulate that, right? In some instances, you need to appeal to the consciousness of both parents in order to ensure that that doesn't necessarily happen, at the very least for the benefit of the child who, if you ask me, is desperate to have both parents involved in their lives. So, as I mentioned, a very important discussion indeed, and one that we'll have to keep watching throughout the course of the next few months.